4 months following one of the bloodiest battles in history, Lincoln delivered his famous speech. I have had the honor and privilege to stand on the same ground that Lincoln's soldiers battled and lost their lives on. The main source that I used was AbrahamLincolnOnline.com. However, I also used militaryhistory.org, historyengine.edu, and history.com. The final source I used was thepursuitofhistory.org. The topic of the Gettysburg Address is relevant because the speech that Abraham Lincoln made was able to encapsulate everything that the United States was struggling with during that time. It was also able to be used as a sign of hope for thousands of people who had lost theirs. That information being found on historyengine.edu. Within this speech, I will first give a brief introduction, which will include a little background and some personal relevance. Then, I will give the delivery of Lincoln's speech. The Battle of Gettysburg took place July 1st through the 3rd of 1863 and is a milestone in American history. On the website history.com, it is stated the battle was a crushing defeat for the Confederacy. Union casualties in this battle numbered 23,000, while the Confederates had lost some 28,000 men, which is more than 1/3 of General Lee's army. In 2017, after hiking through almost 80 miles of the Appalachian Trail from Harper's Ferry, West Virginia, to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, my Boy Scout troop and I visited the battleground. It was such a strange and eerie feeling knowing that the land that I was standing on held such historical importance. According to thepursuitofhistory.org, Lincoln wrote his speech last minute and had about half of it done as he was leaving Washington. Lincoln then edited his speech in Gettysburg, adding another page to it. Lincoln did what he wanted to do at Gettysburg, and he did it under very difficult circumstances. Lincoln's speech was well received at the cemetery. Isaac Allen, a Lincoln supporter and future consul to Hong Kong, heard the speech. While not necessarily an impartial observer, Allen remembered standing next to a soldier, the empty sleeve of his coat indicating that he stood where death was revealing. When Lincoln delivered the powerful line, "The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here," Allen remembered the soldier breaking down in tears. Allen then remembered the soldier looking up at the sky and exclaiming, "God Almighty bless Abraham Lincoln." Lincoln was able to balance a delicate political situation, the demands of governing in wartime, and he likely felt ill with smallpox while he was doing it. Lincoln felt tired and had a headache at Gettysburg, being that he was ill with smallpox. On returning to Washington, he was sick in bed for over a week. Now, there are different drafts of the Gettysburg Address, but I have chosen Lincoln's second draft, available on AbrahamLincolnOnline.org, as the one that I shall be presenting. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation, so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. we have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who have gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it, far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they have fought here, have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we have take increased devotion to the cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that they were highly resolved that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. I have had the honor and privilege to be able to stand on the same ground that Lincoln's soldiers battled and lost their lives on. The main source that I used was AbrahamLincolnOnline.com. However, I also got information from militaryhistory.org, historyengine.edu, and history.com, with my final source being thepursuitofhistory.org. The topic of the Gettysburg Address is relevant because the speech that Abraham Lincoln made was able to encapsulate everything that the United States was struggling with during that time. It was also able to be used as a sign of hope for thousands of people who had lost theirs. Within my speech, I first gave a brief introduction which included a little background on the Battle of Gettysburg. Then I also added some personal relevance to the battleground. Then I gave the delivery of Lincoln's speech. 4 months following one of the bloodiest battles in history, Lincoln delivered his famous speech. Abraham Lincoln is a great example of a politician whose words have lasted far longer than the man himself.